Wait, I just went to my laptop instead of my phone. All right, good morning, guys. I want to introduce you guys to D-Tools Operation 101. What we're trying to do is get a little bit of everybody on the same page and refresh since, the last training was probably 3 years ago. So this is basically a step-by-step guide into knowing D-Tools from opening it up to creating a proposal. So what we'll start with is section 1 is identifying the D-Tools icon as a SI, which is a system integrator on your desktop. As you guys can see that there is pointing out, that's what the icon that you're looking for. And then your startup screen on your dashboard once you open that up. So everybody's pretty much looks the same when you guys open it up there, your dashboard. Some of this stuff that you guys see right now, we are going to cover in later classes and training. So this is basically just step-by-step getting you guys started and knowing the D-Tools. Section 2 is creating and opening up a new project. Now, I got to cover that D-Tools has 2 areas to choose from. Just everybody might be a little bit different, but both have the same function to getting you started to properly set up and creating a new project. As you can see in the highlighted areas and enlarged below, you have the top left icon. Opening that guy up, we'll open up your project editor. And then on the bottom left side also is where you can open up for projects. So once you click on either one, top left or bottom left icons, it's going to open up what we're calling a new project wizard. We're in section 3. This is how we create new projects. Getting it set up into D-Tools, getting everything entered in, and creating the project for what you're going to put together for our end users, customers, general contractors, electrical contractors. I do need to note that you guys will see here, asterisks are required fields to be filled in to create the project. It's good practice to always complete all known information when creating a new project. This will actually prevent you from going back in and entering all the information. So if you're entering a project and you're getting ready to submit it, if you get awarded, your information is already there. You don't have to go back in and start entering all this information type deal, customers' names, addresses, and so forth. It's so much easier and better to have all this information entered when you create the project. I know in estimating, it's a little bit different because we're bidding to several different general contractors or electrical contractors. But as for sales, you guys should know already your guys' contacts.
Do you want me to scan it directly to Kelsey and copy you, or do you want me to scan it to you?
No, I have to add paperwork, so you send it to me.
That's what I typically do.
Mute. Hey, you guys need to mute.
Michelle, mute.
Somebody's. I need to mute.
All right, so right now in the new project wizard, what we're looking at is actually considered step 1. So step 1 is giving the project a name and assigning a project number. Step 1A, you see in the top left there is a client. That is an asterisk. Type in the name or use drop down arrow for current list of clients in our system. You see that when you drop it down here, we pretty much got like a couple thousand people already in there. If there isn't listed there, we are going to cover that in another class, and how to properly set up the clients and so forth. So step B is a project name. Typically what we want to do is most accurate name to be used for reference of the projects. And a lot of times we have the same customer We have the same building, it's just a different area, so we kind of want to avoid the situation of within the field also, when these guys go to these buildings, you know, there's gonna be different floors, different sections, different departments and so forth. So we want to try and use it as where that name is not only just gonna be a name for the customer, but what it entails for our guys out in the field and they know where they're working at.
Yeah, try to make that name short. If you make it too long, and then when you start to save your estimated review files.
Yeah, and we'll cover that also, because we already know some of us, for future people coming in. We'll give them like the abbreviations for like the airport, Southwest Gas, NV Energy. We use, you know, the 3-digit letter and stuff like that and so forth. Like I said, for the project names examples, you can see there, project name on plans or drawing sheets. Those are usually what's through the county and what everybody else references. What the client may reference on their purchase order or contracts. Clients' names, buildings, floor, level, areas, trying to drill it down as easy and simple as possible. We'll go to C. Status. Use the drop-down arrow to change the status of the project. Example and meanings of the status we'll have there is rejected. Usually comes towards the end, meaning project is lost. Estimating, project is being worked on currently right now. Proposed, project has been presented to the clients. Approved, later auto-populated, and we'll cover this in another class. When project marked as approved in later steps, that means that it's awarded, it's ours. Engineering, it's kind of leery right now. We're discussing on how we're gonna use engineering within that status, so doesn't really affect you guys. Completed, project is completed in field and closeout documents are submitted. This will be covered a lot more with project managing at the later date. Closed, this project has been received final payment. It's 100% closed out on accounting side and so forth, so. Next, we'll go to D, list of names associated with the project. You see here, we have 4 boxes there. These cannot be anytime changed. These are locked in. Assigned to is auto-populated to who creates the initial project. For instance, if Ted opens the project originally in a step 1, his name is going to be auto-populated to there. It's going to be assigned to him, but it can always be changed to somebody else who's going to work on it. Sales rep, maybe the same as assigned or person presenting to the client. This needs to be populated. Even if it's the same as assigned, Jesse is working on it. He's also the salesperson. We want 100% fill this in for pulling of reports that it shows either way, assigned or sales rep. Project manager assigned to the project. This will be filled upon later because a lot of times we won't know who the project manager is going to be. Designer, any project that may be engineered, designed by Teledata may not always have someone appointed to, but if you do, we got AV billing a system for one of our clients, but we have another person who's going to present it and sell it. So having as much names associated with this also allows people to look at those people look at the project. E, dates associated with the project. You see here also we have 4 more options. Estimated close dates used for when proposals are due and then changed when sent to the client. So everybody can see in D-Tools that it was presented on this day. A lot of times when you spit out these proposals, it's like Word doc will auto-populate to that current day and you don't know when it was actually presented to there. So we're using that as when it was presented. Actual close date is auto-populated when projects are awarded. This task will be covered further in when awarded a project. Project start date, not always provided up front unless a tentative date is projected. Same with the project end date. Sometimes we don't know when they're going to end or a tentative date on these projects, when their timeframes are. A lot of times, most likely, start and end date we'll get when we get contracts, then we can fill in those dates so everybody can see in D-Tools that this is the start date of the project and possible completion date. The F, we go to project price type. Default is always set as day-to-day when creating new projects. This will pull pricing on material within the catalog. You want to make sure that you always just see this, that it's not blank, but it should populate 110% of the time.
What's our options on the drop down on that? I don't think I've ever looked.
Well, we originally had set it up for Southwest Gas pricing, NV Energy and so forth and whatnot, but it's only for certain people. I mean, you're the one to only touch NV Energy. Jim touched Southwest Gas, Julie didn't touch Southwest Gas up in Northern, so it's basically just for a couple of people. We want to use day-to-day on a day-to-day basis anyway, so make sure that the pricing is not special pricing for Joe Schmo.
Does that pricing, sorry to cut you off, does that pricing also, does that include like, are you saying that's day to day for materials and labor, or is it just one or the other?
Day-to-day for all. We don't, the labor won't be affected.
Okay.
This is just for the material in the catalog.
Thank you.
Everything's completed on here. We hit our asterisks and plus some, hit next at the bottom there to go to step 2.
Garrett, before you, I'm sorry, can we go back? I apologize.
I only have an hour, bro.
The budget part, I'm sorry. Are we supposed to put something in there for budget or go back and fill that out after the?
It was asked budget right now. It doesn't lead to anywhere inside D-Tools. It's basically, you're only gonna see it in that project and in this window. It doesn't go anywhere else.
Garrett, what does quantity-based checkbox mean?
I mean, we'll cover that in another D-Tools. It's not gonna affect you by setting your stuff up right now, so we'll cover that in another class. If you wanna make a note and then let me know. Any other guys you got notes that are not covered in this part, we'll cover it later on.
Okay, thank you.
Step 2, we see here in this window here, entering the contact information for people associated with this project. Basically, this is gonna be your client, list of the contacts for the client. There may be several different contacts under a client that overlook different locations and departments. Option is to save as primary, to set as primary if needed. Default primary usually is the first name that was entered into the client when they're created new.
If you don't click primary on the customer you want, it'll spit out the primary's person on the report.
It's exactly what I just said. The default is same as set
Okay.
in a new client. Please pay attention here. But because we all know,
Yeah, 'cause like
Southwest Gas, we got
Southwest Gas is
20
like-
different guys. So depending on who you're working with, you're gonna have to set, but the set here is the primary, is usually the first name set into the new clients, which we'll cover in 102, 103, 104. Always click next at the bottom here. Is there any way to get rid of that or?
No, because
Okay.
it's the, yeah, there's your next, it's flashing, I promise.
Hit next, then step 3, enter project site address and billing address. Site address is the address of project location, work to be conducted. General area of location, major cross streets can be used at time of bid. A lot of times it might be a new ground up where they're just gonna have listed major cross streets or coordinates or something like that. It doesn't have a physical number address. We just want to make sure that this is populated because this will spit out on your proposal at the final. Billing address is address of the accounting department to submit invoice for billing. A lot of times with our clients, we already have that set up. If they're a client in our system, then in D-Tools, it should mirror what we have in Sage. Upon awarded projects, addresses need to be accurate for technician, clock in, clock out, geo fence. You guys all know what that, understand what that is, Greg?
If you don't fill it out, it'll give you an error message. You have to fill it out, both billing and site.
On the site address for invoicing.
Well, if you
Billing.
try to go to next without completing the billing and the site address, it'll give you an error message. It won't let you proceed until you do.
So that's why we have to go back through and verify in our clients, and we can talk about this later, that everybody should have at least, if they have a client, they should at least know where the address is of their business type deal. Again, going on to the next step, we're gonna hit next. So step 4, basically define the tax settings for this project. And if you guys have any issues, Ted is gonna be the man that you talk to at a later time, not right now. But right now, its default is set for use tax at 10%. This is just to make sure that we're covered on the use tax. Use of the drop-down menu on tax for other options is the use of use tax will include the taxes into your proposal as part of the lump sum. Highly recommended use. That means that when it's used as a use tax and you go to spit out your proposal, it won't show as a separate line item for your tax. It goes into that general one number when you're submitting. The use of sales tax will show as a separate line item listed on your proposal, used for box sales projects, basically, where we don't have any labor or anything like that, correct? So we're just buying the material and we are giving it to another customer and we basically have to show it as a sales tax. All other areas in this step is to remain as default, so that should basically be a use tax or a sales tax between you guys when setting up.
So, I'm sorry, Gary, I just want to understand, as it's seen on the screen is exactly how it should be set on every proposal.
Correct.
Okay,
And of course, we don't do a labor tax, so that should always be blank.
because that is not what I was told before, so.
We hit next. Step 5, assign project resources. Default name shown is as person who created the project, the one who from step 1. Assign option to add names to allow others to have access to project. Used when multiple people are working together on the project and or need to see the project. You can see here in this drop down is when you go to hit assign, this window will pop up as a resources. You can add whoever you want on there as a resource to look at it. It's kind of different from step 1 where we had this assigned salesperson, engineer, project manager. This is just adding additional names onto the project if you need somebody to take another look at it or so forth. So when you select the name and click assign, enter on keyboard to you click on the name and then you can hit assign. If you use control and use your mouse and click on several names separate and then hit assign, you can do a mass entry into it. And then we click next, we go to step 6. Step 6 is entering the project scope of work. Able to enter scope of work, typically not used in this case. Usually entered another location, which we'll cover in a later step. Reason being is this window right here gives you no ability to change your font size or add bullet points. So basically it's default where you don't have the option to change anything. It comes out as typewriter, font, and size 6. So when you go up to spit your proposal, it comes out like really small compared to everything else that we have default in the proposal. And we'll cover that later in this class here. Click next. It takes you to step 7. Define the locations for this project. You're able to enter locations and sub-locations. Again, this is another thing that usually we enter it upon a other location, which is covered in a later step in this class. It just gives you a lot of locations wise. To explain real quickly is building, if you have multiple buildings, multiple floors, multiple areas of work, then you can kind of break out your scope of work for those areas. Like I said, we'll cover that in a further step within this class. And always click next on these steps here. Step 8, define the system of this project. Similar to locations, able to enter systems proposed in project. Use add option only as this is associated with cost codes as shown in example. Never use new. So as you guys can see right there, everything has 100 code. these 100 codes are associated with our clock in and clock out for the guys out in the field. We start adding stuff into there and it goes into Sage as without 100, then a lot of times it will jeopardize your hours in the project. So selecting what's already there, and that's why I say never use new, kind of helps with the bridge between D-Tools and Sage and the guys clock in, clock out in the field.
And if you do have the ability to add by accident, do not add without seeing Ted. These are all like cross to the GLs, so if you have the ability, do not touch them, do not add.
So once you select your system, we hit next. Or step 9 is basically modify the contract payments. You guys are not to touch this at all without Ted's permission. So we're gonna basically skip that and click next. Takes us to step 10. This is probably one of the more lengthier steps, as setting the project custom field values and save your new project. A, which is a TD, you'll also notice that there's an asterisk there. This needs to be filled out with those 2 letters TD. It's very important because this is associated with issuing the project number in D-Tools. So we all know that projects are TD dash. So with putting TD, then it auto populates the number behind it. B is the branch, which is enter 2 letters for the region of your project location. We broke down LV being Las Vegas, MT Montana, NM New Mexico, RN Reno. Reason being for future office pulling reports is when they want to see where the proposals are in the different regions and so forth. So this is basically for later on report pulling.
You have
See-
a question?
Yeah,
If I'm quoting a job in Reno, do I use LV or RN?
RN because it would be the region branch.
I'm quoting it and if I labor it out of here,
We're trying to break down where
Where the
the money is in the different branches. So even though you're bidding it and it's in Reno, we want to know how much work is up in Reno for future.
okay? Just want to be clear.
Say C is Sage number, entered at a later date upon awarded project, and it usually is a 5-digit Sage number issued from operations. D is your tax exempt ID if client is or has this available. A lot of clients, we already do have that number. Some of them might be new, that might be a tax exempt. Accounting kind of needs to know that, so filling in that information would be important.
Just so everyone knows, that's primarily for box sales, because as a contractor, we pay the sales tax. We don't have their tax exempt number flow through to us as a installer.
E is your PWP. If not everybody knows, it's prevailing wage number, usually assigned to projects. If you have a Davis-Bacon number, which is usually like a 10-digit number with it, if not, adding Davis-Bacon so that we know what the wages are going to be for the project. All wages within this section would be verified with accounting because of the different regions and the different counties. This goes for different multiple projects throughout our company. So if you don't have that number, then we have to submit it to accounting to make sure that we have the correct labor cost rates. F, we have a grading of systems, gives an insight of manufacturers specified for the project and possibility of getting awarded. We kind of created this a couple years ago in estimating, and we're giving an example of some of the grades. Right now, A is basically specifications list only one manufacturer allowed on projects that we carry. For instance, in gyms, if it says just hand wall or access and nothing else, then we know that we have a higher grade of winning that project. So we're basically using grade school grades to let everybody know what is the possibilities of winning this project. Run through them real quick. B, specifications list several manufacturers that we carry along with a few that we don't. C is open specs, no manufacturers listed. We have may have characterizes on the performance and or requirements. D design build, F specifications list manufacturers we don't carry, which a lot of times is gonna mean that it leads to no bid. We have no bid was bidding and cannot bid this system for some reason. C would be only, CO would be cabling only, devices may be OFC or OFOI. LO is just labor only, maybe a racket stack, all material may be owner furnished, contractor installed. Last portion of this after that, towards the bottom, is bid sales. This actually gives us the ability to add a hyperlink of your project from the share drive on the servers, which I'll show in more detail later on. But if you're in D tools and instead of going to the share drive folders for bid sales or contract sold, this link will show on top of your dashboard, where if you just click it, it'll take you right to the folder on the share drive from D tools. So once that's all completed, we're gonna hit click Save button to create your project. Your project will then open up in a separate window as Project Editor. So section 4, your project editor, your project has been created and issued a D-Tools project number. This is the portion that will contain everything associated within your project. We'll go to A, project information. All the information entered in section 3, which we just covered, will be reviewed, changed, or verified by using the open icon dropdown on the top left of the project editor under information. Once you hit that, your project information window will open, showing the top tabs of the information entered along with your D-Tools project number. The project was also populated in the dashboard as shown. So you guys all remember this from step 1. We skipped over that and I didn't point it out because when you enter that TD, when you go to open that project in your project editor, there's your D-Tools number there associated with the project. Where was I? Oh, the dashboard, showing it in the dashboard also.
Gary, I know that when you have a project, you're having multiple disciplines, you clone the project and change the TD number. Is this where you change it?
That's one of the gifts that I have that I'll cover later on the side because I kind of force feed stuff through with admin rights that I have.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Not everybody has that option to do it. So also here in the bottom left of that screen there, you'll see it on your dashboard, listed along with all the other projects that you may have to find the TD number there. So going to custom fields icon, you're able to enter the hyperlink as mentioned before on step 10. If you have your folder created on the share drive, you use that hyperlink by within the folder, right click on the address bar above and copy the address as text and enter it into the D-Tools for your hyperlink.
If you move your folders, it breaks the links.
Correct. So yeah, every time you do move the folder or change any name on it, like anything else in Excel, it will break the link. So if you go from projects bidding to projects sold, then you're gonna have to change that link in the D-Tools also.
So you're copying that as text and not as a hyperlink. then?
It's basically the same. So. Setting up your locations.
Sorry.
As you see in the drop down, right side of the screen under drop zone, you want to click on that. I'm calling it a pin icon to open project management locations. There you'll be able to select selecting new icon to enter locations and sub locations. So here you can see where it's the new icon. It gives you the locations. Of course, you have to set a location first before you set a sub location. This is just an example of how to set it up there. There's creating and naming location sub-locations if needed on the sub-locations based off of how large your project you are working on or with. example of how some projects have been set up prior. Note that this is not a global setting and is manually entered. It is best practice to utilize for building of schedule of values for projects later on. We go to setting up your systems. If you didn't do it when you set it up, this is another option for you to set it up on the right side of your screen under the above locations to open up manage project systems. You're going to select the add icon to enter the different systems within the project, as this is associated with cost codes as shown in example, never use new. Creating the systems allows you to produce a proposal breakdown per systems if needed. So if we got, as an example, we're bidding CCTV, fiber, network infrastructure, and AV, you can break it down per system. And you hit
Here you go.
save and close. So that's save and close, and then it's using the view icon. Using the view icon gives you the ability to view the project editor in different ways. Best practice is to change and drop down to items prior to entering any material and or labor. It allows you to see the items added line by line. The summary is best used after all material and labor is completed, enter for viewing. So this basically, just to give you guys a rundown, when you view it as items, just items, it's going to show everything that you drop into that project, no matter what, if it's the location or system and so forth. You're just going to see everything down there. If you view it as summaries, it's going to condense everything and smash it all together. So
I think I'm ahead of you.
we're adding material and labor to projects. You want to check the location and system you want to add the material and labor to under the drop zone as pointed out here. If not used, all will be default as unassigned and cause issues later. So a lot of times it won't pick up a system, it won't pick up a location. It just hangs in limbo under unassigned. There are two areas to adding material from our catalog that both have the same function, just a different look. Material should always have labor associated with it. If not, then you want to bring it up to somebody and let them know, saying, hey, I dropped this from the catalog and it was missing pricing or something like that. That's kind of the stuff that we're kind of trying to work through and get cleaned up. You see the top row of the project editor has an add product icon. In add product window, enter manufacturer product number in search bar. If you guys are well with that, you can also add descriptions or so forth. I work with a lot of the part numbers, so I kind of know them right off the bat. That makes it a lot easier to enter and get it through. And then you see at the bottom section, you can click the desired location and systems again also for your material. Click add and close icon in the top left window, and it automatically will drop it into what areas you had clicked. Another place is the left side of the project editor screen has Product Explorer tab. In the Product Explorer window, enter the manufacturer part number like how we did in the previous step in the search bar. If your location and systems are selected as mentioned in the previous section, then you drag and drop into the project editor. And you should see it drop into the. So now there's two going into labor. There's also, same as what we just discussed on the products. There's adding labor, two areas to adding labor from our catalog that both have the same function as just a different look. Labor only and will not be associated with any materials. The top row of the project editor has an add labor icon that was next to the product. In add labor window, enter labor in search bar, search section, bottom section, click on desired location and systems for labor. Add click and close icon in the top left of the window. Similar to the product that we just talked about. Second option for labor is the left side of the project editor screen has Labor Explorer tab. In the Labor Explorer tab, enter labor in search bar. If your location and systems are selected as mentioned in previous section, then drag and drop into the project editor. Once material and labor is added into your project editor, it will show as line itemized under the location and system as you desired. So like I mentioned before, looking at the line items, in items, you show everything listed there. And then you see the top bars there that separate those products is basically all associated with your locations and systems. So note if any material is not in the global catalog, needs to be noted and be covered in a further training. We're gonna discuss that, like I said, later on what's the process of getting it to the appropriate people to add it into the global catalog. We all know there's probably 1 million products in our line of field, so we can't just populate the whole catalog with 1 million products. It's just gonna bog everything down. So if it's not in the catalog, then we just note part number, manufacturer, stuff like that, and we'll cover that later. We're gonna go into adjusting material and labor of items in your project editor. First of all, material quantities. One option for single purchase items is to double click on the material line item to open a project editor window and change the amount of the quantity box under the general icon. And this is kind of something that you were mentioning, Greg, about the quantity box. If it's checked, this will allow you to change the quantities to show as one line item instead of what we'll cover later. You clone it and it's going to show like 500 jacks listed all as once. You can kind of condense the line item here for easier visual.
Sometimes that box is grayed out. You have to select the bulk item
Down below it.
checkbox down below in order to edit it.
Well, let me take a look at that. If you maybe when you're opening it, that your default might be wrong or not be checked. We'll double check that box in the step one.
If you change the quantity there and then you go to pricing, if you had to change the labor or something on one of those jacks, does it change it for all, let's say 200 that you enter in the quantity there?
Yes.
Do you have to, okay.
No, because it's gonna show quantity 200, it's one line item, so you're changing it for per line item.
We'll use that from now on.
If you use the clone, then you have to go and change.
Cloning it, you have to do for each one or do a mass update. Another option for single purchase items is to right click on the material line item for a pop-up menu. And this is what we were just talking about. Select clone to open clone item windows and change amount in the quantity box. And click OK button, and this clones as the line items in the quantity entered, not best practice. As you can see here as an example, now you just show that jack 25 times. So like if you have you want to change, yeah, yeah.
But if
Right.
you're gonna move or copy that to a different location or a different system,
We'll cover that in another class. That's getting a little bit more too detailed and stuff like that. So
okay,
I know where you're coming from. I've already got it written down.
okay.
Now, as for cabling is a little bit different. You want to click on the line item of the wire length field here as highlighted. The column in project windows to adjust your total footage as needed. So you don't have to, we buy it as a 1,000-foot box. You don't have to clone it 200 times. You can actually change the footage here in that line item to a total footage you have. Easier visual to look at as one line item instead of cloning X amount of boxes.
And cables always entered by foot, not by box.
Another option for the cabling would be to double click on a material line item to open edit product window and the total footage in the wire length box under the specifications icon. It's another second way of you opening it up and changing your footage there. I will go for, material pricing. I'll click on the line item unit cost column in the project editor window to adjust the current vendor price. As you see here, you can change it right there without opening the product itself there. When you get updated pricing and stuff like that, you can just go through. If you got a single line items, you can just go through and change everything that's off from what you have there, where that was in the catalog. Another option is opening edit product window and adjusting the unit cost under price icon. Another option is changing the pricing. Now for labor adjustment, this way, the only way that I know of right now, and I might be wrong, is opening the edit product window under price icon, unit, in the unit labor hours.
Did I miss that one?
Yeah, this is where I'm at right now.
Okay.
So for some reason, we could change it in the line item before in your editor. And now we see it as blue and it's underlined like it's hyperlink. But anytime you click on that, it takes you right to this window here. So you can't change. This is basically the only way that I know that you can adjust your labor. If something seems, off or something like that, you got like cable at 1 hour per foot. We want to change that and make sure that you're accurate and give you a fair chance. So
There are some line items in the library or in the catalog, that, for example, F connectors come in tax of 25 and the labor unit assigned is for all 25 and not for an individual.
did you let somebody know?
No. Who would I let know?
Put me, Jay, and Ted on there. And then we'll look into it. So that's pretty much labor adjustment. Now we're gonna go to review of project. In the project editor window, we set the view icon as items previously in the previous section. We can now look at viewing the projects several different ways based off of how the project was set up for locations and or systems here. Either that icon, the eye on the left-hand side. We'll go over some of these different summaries. Phase summary is basically to review the phases of the total project. The phases are associated as the task in every project, from installing cable as 02-rough-in to terminating faceplate connectors as 03-trim. This would include material and labor combined. And this is basically all associated with what would be the clock in, clock out system and tracking cost codes within the field. We can go to location summary, which is review the locations to see how much each would be for installation cost, price, hours, and markup margin. If subcontracts, sublocations are entered, then you have the option of further drill down to view them. For instance, a project may have multiple areas like buildings, floors, and or phases. You'll always see as your location. And then when you have sublocations, you'll see a plus and minus on the left-hand side of the screen. For example, I use this to drill down on how much my horizontal cabling is from patch panel to faceplate with the jacks and everything. Try to keep it like an hour per cable type deal. You can sniff check your stuff this way too, which we can talk about later. Going to the system summary. So review of systems similar to locations, but this will only be the systems with no locations as were sublocations. Of course, I don't have anything entered in this. This is just looked as an example for your network infrastructure, fiber, CCTV, and AV, as a complete package for those systems. Next would be the item summary. It's a review of all locations and systems combined together, line itemized per material and labor. For instance, if the project has the same cable but shown in different locations and systems, then this will show it as one line item. So this will combine everything as to look at how much your project is total wise with all the material and labor in there. Now moving on to section 5 is your proposal. The project has had its material labor entered and have reviewed to verify everything is covered. The following steps is to creating a proposal to submit to our end users. Part A is the scope of work. What we usually is a Word document in rich text form. It's best practice to use and should include the following items. Sheets of plans used with dates of plans, for example, E-sheets, electrical, T-sheets, technology, and so forth, usually found on the bottom right corner of your plans. List of addendums, amendments, and specifications with dates, if any. We'll go into bullet points of items pertaining to the project, list amount of drops or cameras, speakers, so forth, IDF build outs, any fiber backbone, etc. We'll cover this more of a scope of work in writing, because there's multiple discussions in the office on how it should be written and pertaining to the different systems and so forth. So that's something that we're kind of working on and trying to drill down on how we want it to read all the same as one company. In the project editor, under open icon drop-down menu, there's a scope of work. This is after, of course, you've typed out your scope of work. Use the client to open a project scope of work window. Yeah, highlighted those ones that I just mentioned right now. Once that opens, you want to select under format the rich text option, which will have a pop-up asking to create the scope of work in, that was a typo, RTF file, and select yes. And this basically goes back to what I mentioned when we set it up and typing a scope of work in one of those previous steps. You're only limited to that font and that size. If you leave it as a regular text form, it's the same deal as what we talked about earlier. Using a text form, you'll see that the window that pops up once you select yes. Select the open icon in the project scope of work to open a blank scope of work pad. And then you, like I just mentioned right now, this is where you're gonna enter your scope of work. This is just an example, but with the regular text form, we don't have these options of changing your font size. If you wanted to highlight, underline, bold certain things, we're basically working in a Word doc with the rich text form.
Is there a certain font size that we should be using? Because I have noticed that when I'm writing my proposal out in this and then I save it, some of those words are cut off on the end on the actual proposal in your PDF.
That I think would be a formatting of the scope of work coming into the proposal.
It really isn't, Garrett. That's actually a reporting issue. The way that somebody had altered the Crystal Reports setting in the reports, and that needs to be fixed because everybody's does that. It doesn't matter if it's RTF formatting issue. It still is because the Crystal Reports is set incorrectly on the standard Teledata version 4 report. I've talked to Kevin about that, and that's something that we need to resolve.
Okay,
There's a workaround.
we're gonna fix it, so there is no workaround.
Write
It should be right the first time
Use,
around.
use Microsoft Word to write your scope and
I
then you
do.
cut and paste it into RTF.
I do, but
You adjust your margins.
once I put it in, then I go to print it, like some of those words out the very end of the
Yeah.
right-hand side, they'll be cut off.
No, no.
We'll have Jay look into it. We can have a discussion for the next 15
No
minutes
problem.
about this. So we'll have Jay, and then we'll do a test to see that, make sure that when you copy it in, that it doesn't have that cutoff.
Thank you.
So. Where was I?
Number 3.
Oh, selecting refresh on the left hand, on that window there, your project scope of work. will basically, because when you save and close, it'll still show as a blank, but you hit refresh and everything that you just entered will show in that box below. And then basically a save and close and your scope of work is associated within your project. Like I mentioned numerous times before, standard text format option in DTools is default is only font, default is only one font and font size. Best practice is using a rich text, gives you that Word doc ability, adding font sizes, changing sizes, bullet points, etc.
Still doesn't spell check.
Generating a proposal. In Project Editor, click on Reports. We're going to click on Reports tab on the top of the screen. Select the Run Reports icon dropdown. Select Clients to open the Project Reports window. Here you'll see a last line item of that project reports is the standard use Teledata proposal template V4 with sub options, which we're going to talk about right now. The default, which will generate the proposal as a lump sum total used for best practice. You see there, it's that top line item there. Next one is also an option is show equipment by location. This will generate the proposal as the locations, the way it was set up in section 4B, along with sub locations not used unless project is usually phased or multiple buildings when you set it up. 3 is the show equipment by systems. This will generate your proposal as the systems the way it was set up in section 4C, if needed to show in different systems. I know a lot of times I like to do mine as just a lump sum. But if you got to break it down and they're going to a la carte your proposal and they ask for it, you can simply just select systems and everything that was added into those systems will spit out your proposal as that way. 4 is the show equipment list. This will generate the proposal as a default lump sum, same as the default. But at the end, it will show the manufacturer descriptions of all the material in your project. Highly not recommended due to the exposure of work against competitors, unless you're dealing with your one sole client that wants to see a list of the products and your quantities of products used for the project. I think that would be the only time that you would use it. So I'm not gonna do it and send it to Helix and they're gonna just go and price the same shit that I just did. Oh, stuff that I just did type deal.
Can that be filtered to just significant equipment only?
It's gonna spit out anything, no matter what. If you put like 500 miscellaneous as like $1 million, it's gonna list it.
Hey, why are my fingers?
See, is select the template to use and select Run and Close button to open the SI report viewer window. This allows you a last preview prior to export of your proposal. As an example there. To export the proposal, use the PDF icon to open the SI export report window as highlighted there. We're gonna verify format as PDF, of course. Enter save to by using the browser button for shared drive to find project folder, or if you have the hyperlink as mentioned earlier in sections, you can enter it into save to. And then enter a file name with the box as the TD number and project name as entered. Basically, it's going to be similar to what your main folder in the shared drive is listed as TD 1234 Teledata data drop. Select import export. And then a shared drive window of location entered in the save to will open and save select. Basically, you're proposing a PDF format has been saved to the shared drive for everybody to review or have access to. Basically, this concludes the DTools Operating 101 Introduction to DTools. Further training will be scheduled by personnel to cover a more in-depth look into operating DTools software. There's a couple items I know you guys mentioned today. If you guys have stuff you guys want to see further cover in DTools training, so we all are on the same page as a company, feel free to shoot me an email, me and Evelyn, an email, or me, I guess I'm in charge of this now. So, I guess leave it up for any, you guys have got any note, comments or?
I was very impressed, Garrett. Very
Not
impressed.
bad at my English.
Good job, Garrett.
Not bad at my English.
We'll be able to sit down with you and Evelyn later,
Yeah,
about some revisions and changes. When